Good afternoon, Scott Redler, T3 Live. Welcome to today's recap. So we entered this week not sure what to expect because last week we had that oversold bounce that that people played decently well, I think, on the site. You had the red dog reversal on Tuesday. NASDAQ led the way after being battered and bruised, and then going into Easter weekend, nice 50 handle move off the lows. So this week the bears were saying, oh, it was just an oversold bounce on light volume, and then it was the bulls saying, but we penetrated pretty far deep, where if the sellers had some control, they probably wouldn't have let that happen. So as traders, we're trying to do it both ways. I think over the last month and a half, we've adjusted pretty well to try and play little bounces, little red dog reversals, getting day and a half followed through, and then before the last week, we were able to find those H patterns where you'd get that and then you get a little bit of a bounce, but instead of adding, you have to sell it, maybe get short versus resistance, and then it rolls over and make new lows. So, I think that type of environment is on hold for now. So coming in this week, we're like, what type of commitment will we see? Last Wednesday, we had a gap up. I'm like, as long as we stay above that gap up, chances are the bears can't corral. And we also have Thursday's low as a point of reference as well. And now we have another point of reference. You go to the chart here of the SPX, and you will see that here is one of the trends that we've been following, the more intermediate trend. That was the beginning of the year, the accelerated trend that broke to the downside, and then we had to move up, and then you had this range that we've been trading in for almost 2 months now. I'll zoom in, and that was what we've been trying to figure out. What's next? Okay, and if you look here, it's just been the way these block boxes are. It's just fake out after fake out. It's pretty crazy. This was that last fake out that led to a move to the lows, and then right at the lows we held, and then you had to move back to the highs. Then at this point, remember this, you had this breakout above this range, and then you had the big outside day failure, came in, boom, boom, boom. Anyway, here is your little 3-day bottom. This is when it crossed above the 2-day pivot, and then since then, we've had a pretty decent sized bounce right back smack in the middle of this range. So we're back in the range, back in the same type of trading, very individual, stock focused, etc. Here was Thursday's low. Okay, here is today's low, and this was the gap up in earnings. So, or not earnings, Wednesday, the follow through to this. So here we are right there. So not much, I guess, to say. If we opened up yesterday, tomorrow, when we trade below the prior high and we fell, okay, maybe some people have something to say, but at this point, we're above the 8 and 21 day. I'd like to see some more digestion, and we'll figure out what's going on in the actual stocks. You look at the Qs. This was the problem spot, over this year, or at least when it diverged right here with that head and shoulders top. Then you had huge support going sideways into that oversold oscillator. Here was that red dog reversal, and now, we've had a decent sized bounce. So the question is, where do the bears, have to defend, etc., for the trend not to be broken? You have a little bit more room there. Okay, at this point, you have your red dog reversal here. Here was your day and a half move, another higher low, another higher low. 21 day has been pretty much containing the bounce each time except for here, so we'll see what's next. Closed, I guess, close to the highs. We'll see what happens. Netflix is all over the board. We'll have to go to that next. But here, I guess, you could say this is like an ascending channel again, and we'll see what works here. Do we get into this apex and then take out this downtrend with authority, or is this an oversold bounce that we wind up breaking this way, and then we're back into the same type of weak NASDAQ? And then this is what the macro bears are pointing to. I know in off the charts we had, this head and shoulders top pattern, which was very good to look at because it helped give us clues to get short or reduce risk here. Now that you're saying, okay, with more time, you now have this, huge head and shoulders pattern where this bounce up this week is just the right shoulder. And if that's the case, they'll probably have to contain the move, a little bit higher into 88-ish. And then if we turn back lower, then this is a pretty bearish looking pattern that could lead to a break this time below the 200-day and then some. But for right now, we're trading the shorter time frames. I'm still tactical. I have a few longs on. Last week, I started to put on like 4 or 5 longs, depending on the day, depending on the stock, because I've had to have a little exposure. They've been trading a little bit better. But I don't want to be stuck in something like this. Boom. Okay, after this, boom. And who knows, maybe it's the same case here. So you don't know. So I'm very light, and I'm going to try and stay hedged. a little bit. And if we start to break this, I'll get out of the way, pretty quick if it lets me. As far as individual stock action, today Facebook wound up being decent. We've been trying to play this stock. We've been very active in it. This was that Head and Shoulders top. Here was, finding support going sideways. It took a little bit of time to get through here, but it wound up getting through here. I'm long a little bit of this overnight. We'll see. Wednesdays it has earnings. Maybe it wants to, push up a little bit prior to the earnings. Twitter also, acting a bit better. We talked about this igniting bar. You see igniting bars, what it means is it ignites potentially a new move, and that's what it did here. Saw some commitment, and then it did close okay, so perhaps it wants to go up a little bit more. This would be some decent resistance. Earnings aren't this week, so I guess it'll just trade off of Facebook a little bit. As far as LinkedIn's concerned, still working its way higher. I messed this trade up pretty bad where got along on this red dog reversals, figured it could come back and retest this area, and it's on its way. Still very lethargic, not like you're missing much. So you have this big downtrend, and it's still broken, and you have these trades to the upside every now and then. That tend to be sold. This one, who knows what happens next time, but I guess there's a little bit more room, and we'll see if that changes or if it continues, and we just have to be aware of that. Apple did give you another day. Some guys on the side were playing it. Unfortunately, I've gotten away from this, but Facebook's been pretty good. Ever since it broke, this trend line here, I pretty much just avoided it. I didn't get shorted, and then on Friday when I left for the day, it had that nice little reversal and cleared this actually 4-day move, and here it popped back up into this. So now some are saying going into earnings, you could draw this wedge a little differently, connect the dots this way, which makes a little bit of sense, and then you open it up, and it's still consolidating what has been a decent move since almost a year ago already. And we'll see what happens on Wednesday. We'll see how it acts and if they want to treat it as a value play or something in the middle between high beta and value, because that's pretty much what Apple is now. It's not super growth, but it's not a snail either. It makes a lot of money. As far as other stocks, solar's perked up a little bit, but not much to say here. This, I would say, is one of the stronger ones. You still have this big move, and it's maintained a decent portion, closed in the high, so some might have this long overnight. And then Solar City is something that people go to. I know I didn't take this one today, but it gave you a decent trade over here, and now it looks like it's trying to hold again. These are the type of little trades you get in this friggin' market. Maybe it wants to see 59.85. There was, I think, I don't know, I'm not even going to talk about it, but this one perked up. This is, I guess, a little similar to Solar City, but don't quote me. I guess maybe it does the same type of electrical scenarios for the vehicles, like a Tesla. And I think, in some of the sites it was saying that they might just do some kind of collaboration. So we'll see. Whatever. It didn't act so great, but it did close on the highs. So see what's next there. This looks like most other solar names, not showing much relative strength, but coming up a little bit. The XLE, let's see what that did today. Another up day. This point, you mixed it. It was showing relative strength, and I think we had it off the charts. We talked about it on this day in morning call. It was one of the sector spotlights, and it's had a big move. Just because it's extended from the 8 and 21 day doesn't mean it's a short, but when it's extended like this after day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, I would probably avoid it. It's an accident waiting to happen, in my opinion, but until you see a really potent, I guess, a red dog reversal, where it trades through, goes all the way up, comes back below. Don't try and be cute on the short side. And if you're riding it long, congratulations, you caught a nice trade in a group showing a lot of relative strength. Financials really not doing a heck of a lot. XLF, you could say, I guess you could say it's going a little sideways. Inside day today, maybe traded versus this little range here. The low here is 21.75. JP Morgan still in this lower wedge type area, so I guess the street might notice if this were to just turn down. It hasn't filled this gap, hasn't even really thought about it, and it's closed pretty much a little bit below Thursday's low. So if it starts to take out this area, I guess that would bring out some weakness in the banks. I know Goldman, not really doing much here. It opened up, sold down, made a low and a little red dog reversal here, but this stock is broken, and there's nothing too compelling about this. It's just in one big range, and it's coming off the lower end of this range, I guess, and it's still below the 200-day. 3 to 5 minute charts maybe on that, if anything. What's Citigroup doing? Citigroup did come out with decent earnings in that group. Kind of trying to flag here. Again, doesn't look so compelling. Like excuse me for my lack of enthusiasm in my voice. I just don't see that many good things to do. GLD, what did that do today? Did it open lower and come off the lows? A little bit, but it's so hard to trust, and it's so erratic. This was the calculated trade. We like calculated trades. Here's one of them. Boom. Then that was the exhaustion gap up that failed. Then it came in, decent amount, almost 50% of the move, but then came up lower high, trapped people, and now open lower off the lows below the moving averages, and everything happens overnight. So it's too random. Don't be in anything random. So I think, I talked to some friends. We talk about action and setups, and the guys that are making the most progress are really the ones that are being so patient. They're not playing the noise. They're not playing, if they're playing blackjack, a 7 versus 7 or a 8 versus 9. They're really sitting there waiting for like a face card versus a 4, 5, 6, or even an 11 versus a 4, 5, 6, and then they got to double down on that good setup. And that setup was actually last week, that Tuesday, Wednesday. Now, there are some things to do. You're getting these one-off type trades, like, just say KNDI, stock from way back when, a broken stock. But if you get a reversal like this, maybe you get a day and a half, and from this lower level, if you weren't trapped in it, there's a little bit of money. Day and a half trades. This is still 3-4%. Tesla perked up today a little bit. Still in a descending channel. I'm not sure what it's going to take. It might take earnings before something better happens here, but did hold a little bit higher. And I guess some people might be long a little bit of this overnight for a day and a half trade. I guess it makes a little bit of sense. I did try this FEYE, and thinking that maybe after friggin' a move from 95 down to below 50, it could be ready for something, just some kind of trash or treasures trade. So this descending channel is very steep. I guess if it were to really get above, what's this? This is really, it's got to get above 50 with like tremendous volume, and there's no tremendous volume here for something to be a little bit better. So maybe have it on the radar. I know some of us were involved here, but you know what? It does. If I got stopped out on this trade right around here, and if you tried it again here and you got stopped out there, okay. And then now, if you want to try it again, try it again. Hopefully, you're not the type of trader that's buying, because then you're probably blown out of the water. We don't do that here. We try and do a level versus a level, then there's your stop, a green level versus a level, there's your stop, and then who knows, from this lower level, maybe it tries to retest that, and that would be a decent move. What else is there? Google held, I guess, the real big lower level, but it's still not acting great. Some shorted it off the open, had a little success. It's still kind of lethargic, below the moving averages, not really showing you much. If you're a macro investor in Google, you're still probably doing just fine. If you're trading intermediate trends, hopefully you sold it when it broke this one and got below the 8 and the 21 day. And now we'll see if there's just tactical action there. So far, not really much. What else were people? Oh, TBTs. I talked about the igniting bar in the TBTs, and I know it's been trending lower. And finally, let's see, what could you have seen here? This was one intermediate trend that broke. Here was another, area of support that broke. First, obviously, this was that broke and came back up and failed. And so it's been, if you have it in the draw for a higher interest rate at some point, okay, keep it there. You probably have it from last year when we talked about that, which was much closer to here, and you just didn't take your trade, or you had a tier system and sold some, hopefully, on some of these breaks. And now, as a tactical trade, it still has a lot to prove, but you had your first green day that engulfed this prior 4, and then today it opened down and closed green. So maybe it wants to at least retest this, but that's not saying much, and it is what it is. So if you're going to be doing these type of little trades that are not much or not saying much, you got to do your 3 to 5 minute charts, take trades, and be very tactical and make sure you don't stick around or add at a high. And same way, I guess, right now, if you're trying to short after move lower, it's a little bit more difficult. We did about a month ago. You were able to, short rallies and then press on breakdowns, and then finally last week you were able to maybe buy a little bit and buy higher, but right around here where the oscillator is from negative 70 back to near zero, meaning we're neutral, so you're not going to get help from overbought, oversold readings. The stock actually needs real buyers. It's a little trickier. Today, we made a little bit of money shorting the spiders, thinking maybe we get a little retracement, and then covered some, and then it rallied back, got stopped out, and that trade was a decent trade, but if you wanted more and you pressed down there, that little cute short turned into something a little bit more frustrating, whereas that was probably the time to flip and get some quality longs for what happened the rest of the day. So try not to do too much and over trade and go from long to short, short to long, long to short in one particular trade like some of you guys are doing in Facebook. Try and pick and choose your battles in key areas and stay with it. And at some particular point, things will loosen up. The trade keeps changing every single week. We're now in earnings. It's very stock specific. And there'll be a lot of different setups, but if you're too frustrated, caught in the noise, you're not going to see it when some of the stars align for that bigger, meatier trade, which we've all been thirsting for. That's been hard to get, except for every now and again. It is April and Monday. We have a long week ahead of us. Hopefully you did okay today. Sperling's back. Make sure you're listening to him, getting back on his game after a nice vacation. You have Mike Lee and you have LeVay. You have everyone talking in the chat. So try and figure out where you want to hone in on and see who's doing what. And if you see a few different people doing the same thing, there's probably some type of setup. Look at the setup. Hopefully you've learned, you've taken some of our classes, you know why we're in that setup. And then if you like it too, maybe that's a spot for you to gravitate towards versus doing just little things here and there. I know plug just shows you the frustration of this friggin' market. It was actually acting pretty well. Wedging, they started to run it before the 10 o'clock conference, and I know I made a little bit of money when it traded through 770, and then I think I bought a little bit more when it went above 810, and then some news came out. It ran to match this area and then just failed, and I think I lost in the trade and turned a decent winning scalp into a loss, and now it's back here, and who knows. It just shows you, even the best setup out there that was tight, that held during the whole correction, is just, they're not giving it to you. They're making these pain trades happen where things that look the best wind up failing, and things that look the worst wind up rallying, and you don't want to be caught on both sides of that mess. If it happens and it's there, you stay with it. If not, just get out of the way and move on. That can keep you sane and that can keep you safe. See you tomorrow morning at the morning call. Have a good night.